And olive oil wouldn't go with the Asian flavors in this dish, so use a vegetable or a peanut oil is fine also. Then you need a couple teaspoons of soy sauce. You won't need salt, so if you don't need, you could use the lower sodium soy sauce if you like, so don't add salt into this. And then we'll add some sesame oil also, and garlic, and some crushed peppers. And we whisk this together. That's basically it. Now, you can add as little or as much of the red peppers as you would like, and you can just adjust that to your taste. It's up to you totally. And then you just whisk this together. When you use the sesame oil, which goes in this dressing, you want to be very careful that you don't overuse it. And also, if you try to cook with it, it will dissipate really, really quickly. So only use sesame oil in the very end of a dish. You actually use it as a flavor more than to cook with. So don't overuse this. Be very careful because it is very strong. And that's why we just add about a teaspoon or so of sesame oil at the end. And if you want a little stronger, you could add a little bit more. Then this goes right over the cooked noodles. Now, I use an Asian style noodle. You could use a spaghetti or a thin linguine if you want. Here's the Asian noodles that we're using. They're a thin egg noodle. They're a real nice noodle to use, so you could go to an Asian grocery store and buy some noodles like this if you like. Then you want to cook those off, drain them, and toss with your dressing. And that's when I like these best, is when they're warm. And let's just use my fingers to get in there to toss it. And then you just let this sit for a few minutes once you have the dressing on, so that the flavors have a chance to develop, and it also has a chance to soak into the noodles a little bit. Let's put this in our bowl. This is great, absolutely great with barbecued. If John and I do barbecued pork loin or something like that, a lot of times we serve these noodles as a side dish. You'll find many things to use them for. And then we'll put this right in our bowl. Very easy to serve. We take this a lot to parties and things like that when we need to take a side dish for a group of people. And then I have two different types of sesame seeds which are going to stick to my finger since I tossed the pasta. This is a black sesame seed, and it's actually really black. It hasn't been toasted to become black. It is black. And we'll just garnish a little bit with that. And then we've also have some just white sesame seeds. If you'd like to toast these, you can. It makes them just a bit nuttier. And we'll also garnish with a little bit of that. And let's place that over here, and I'll show you. I also have some pickled ginger. Get my sesame seeds off my fingers. Now, it seems to me that when Asian people do garnish, they really like food coloring a lot. But this pickled ginger is wonderful in that it's sweet and a little tangy, and this is the whole root. Sometimes you'll find it sliced. And what I do is I slice it just nice thin slices, and then I julienne it. You could actually use the whole slice for garnish if you like. Just slice it, put it on top of your dish, and you have a nice bright little bit of color, a little bit of tang, and everybody will love these sesame noodles. Now for the noodles, you need a ½ pound of dry Asian egg noodles, or you could use spaghetti or any other type of noodle you'd like to. 2 tablespoons of soy sauce. Now I said 2 teaspoons in the recipe, but if you want to cut down the soy, that's fine. Also, you can do it to taste. 2 cloves of garlic chopped, 1 teaspoon hot pepper flakes, 1 teaspoon of sesame oil. Be careful when you use sesame oil. Don't overuse it, and don't cook with it until the very end. 1/4 cup of vegetable oil. These noodles are so great because you can serve them hot, cold, reheat them the next day. They are very versatile. Next, we'll make soft polenta with roasted herbs. Now, polenta is is a dish made with cornmeal, and we'll use a finely ground cornmeal for this polenta. It's also going to be a soft polenta, which is a little bit different. A lot of people make polenta and put it into a form and then either slice it or cut it out and grill it, saute it, or bake it. But this will actually have some movement to it, and I hate to use this analogy, but it'll be somewhat like cream of wheat in the texture, but it will not taste like that, believe me. So to get started, what we need to do is put a saucepan on high heat, and we'll saute 2 cloves of garlic and 2 shallots. And this is the first step in actually pumping up the flavor of polenta. I really feel like most people make polenta and it's just a little bit too bland for me and just a little bit too boring, and it doesn't have to be. It can have lots of flavor, it can be very interesting, and then it can be a very versatile side dish. So let's put our garlic and shallots in. And we'll just saute these until we can start to smell the aroma. Also, instead of just putting the stock right in, this will help to get rid of any off flavors or any strong flavors before we add the stock. And we'll add 2 cups of stock. Now, it's important to use stock and not water. This is a chicken stock, so you could either use 2 cups of chicken stock or a vegetable stock. But if you use water, it's just not going to have the same flavor or the same depth of flavor than if you were using a stock. So if you want to keep this vegetarian, go ahead and just make a vegetable stock. Now you want to turn this up to high heat, and we'll wait till this comes to a boil, and then we'll stir in the cornmeal. Now, it's very important when you stir in the cornmeal that you do this slowly and carefully. This is sort of the only time when you can mess this up. And that's because if you try and just dump the cornmeal in, it can lump up, and those lumps will never cook, and they'll just have an awful texture to your cornmeal, your polenta. The cornmeal will be these little balls in your dish, and it will not be nice. You want it to have a nice creamy texture to it. Now it's just starting to come to a boil on the side, and what I do is I start to whisk a little bit just to start getting some movement in the stock, and then I sprinkle a little bit of the cornmeal in, stop for a minute, let that get incorporated, let it start to cook a little bit, and then sprinkle again. It's better if you do this from like a measuring cup like I am, rather than directly from the box or the bag, because you have more control over it this way. And you just want to keep sprinkling and stirring. And then we'll let this cook. Now, it looks fairly watery here, but actually this will cook and get thicker and thicker and thicker. And since this is a very finely ground cornmeal, we really don't have to cook this for a long amount of time. Now, you can get a coarser ground cornmeal, and you will have to cook it a little bit longer. But you can see it's already thickening up. It gets thick very fast. It's important that you keep stirring the polenta so that it doesn't stick on the bottom. Once it really starts to go, which this is right now, I'll turn the heat down quite a bit, just so I have a little bit more control over it. Now, as polenta cools and sits in your dish when you go to serve it on the table, it will stiffen up. So that's why I'm adding a little bit of cream to keep that texture so that even as it cools, it still has a nice texture to it. And a little bit of cheese, not only for texture, but also for flavor. So this is getting a nice thickness. To me, what it looks like is a little bit runny mashed potatoes. So if you made your mashed potatoes a little too watery, that's what this would look like. And I'll add about a 1/4 cup of heavy cream and about 1 ounce of very mild soft goat cheese. Now, if you want to use Parmesan cheese, if you want to use a mild Jack cheese, you could do that also. And I'm just going to let that cook for just another minute. Let's get rid of this. Just to melt the cheese. And I'll show you the texture on this. You have this really nice, creamy texture in here. And that's a nice texture for the polenta because it will keep getting thick. We're going to add one more thing to this, though. So let's pull this off the heat, and I'm going to put another pan on the heat and turn the temperature on high while I give this another stir. There's a couple lumps of goat cheese in here that I want to make sure and smooth out. And you can just keep this off to the side, leave it on a burner that's been turned off. Now what we'll do is we're going to roast the herbs that will go into the polenta, and I always do this at the very end. So you want to take about a tablespoon of unsalted butter. And you want to always use unsalted butter because they have to use the freshest cream when they make unsalted butter because they can't hide the impurities with the salt. So you know you're getting actually the best product you can buy. And if you think that it's going to go bad, if you're not going to be able to use it fast enough, you can always freeze it and then take a cube out as you need it. Now, for the roasted flavor and the nice toasty flavor, we're actually going to let the butter go a little bit farther than we usually do, just so it starts to turn brown. And what that will do is it'll give it a nice nutty flavor, but this is where you have to be careful because you cannot walk away from this. If you walk away from this, you could come back and there may be just burnt butter there. So it's already starting to brown along the edges here. And as soon as I start to see that, then I'll add about a tablespoon of fresh herbs. You can use any type of herb you like, basil, oregano. This is a little rosemary and thyme. And it's nice and brown. I can hear this sizzling. It pops a little bit, really pulls those flavors of the herbs out. And then I put that right into the polenta. And then you need to season this with salt and pepper. It's very important that this is seasoned well. So make sure and give it a taste before you serve it because the polenta, even though it has lots of flavor in there, there's no salt. There was no salt in the liquid we cooked it in. And we just give that a stir. And let's put it into a nice bowl. This is great to serve with lamb shanks or ossobuco. It's wonderful side dish. So give it a try. For the polenta, you'll need 1 teaspoon of olive oil, 2 cloves of garlic chopped, 2 shallots chopped, 2 cups of chicken or vegetable stock. Now, I would prefer you to use actually a canned chicken or vegetable stock rather than using water. 2/3 of a cup of finely ground polenta or cornmeal, 1 ounce of soft mild goat cheese, 1/4 cup heavy cream, salt and pepper to taste. Then for roasting the herbs, you'll need 2 teaspoons of unsalted butter, 1 tablespoon chopped fresh herbs such as basil, thyme, and rosemary. Now remember, the polenta is not only good for a side dish, but it's great for brunch. Next, we'll do a couscous salad.
Now back to Caprial's Cafe.
Couscous is so wonderful. It is so versatile that you can make hot dishes with it, salads with it. It can be tossed with just a little bit of fresh herb and stock, allowed to sit for 10 minutes, and then you can serve it on your table. Very little cooking. It's so easy to make. And what couscous is actually a pasta. A lot of people get confused and think that couscous is a grain, but it's a Moroccan pasta, and it's so simple to make. This is about 1.5 cups of couscous, and then I have 3 cups of stock on that's boiling. I'm going to put a pinch of saffron in for both flavor and color. And if you want to make this vegetarian, you can use a vegetable stock or use chicken stock also. And you just want to bring that to a boil. You don't have to let it cook for any length of time. And you just pour that right over the couscous. So that was very difficult, wasn't it? And we just put the lid right on. And we'll let this sit for about 10 minutes. And what happens is when it sits for 10 minutes, it looks like that. And it's very solid, and you have to break it apart with your fork. So you just kind of flake it with your fork to break it apart. And you can serve this, you can let it sit and get cold, that's fine, and then break it apart the next day. You can serve it warm by just fluffing it a little bit and then seasoning it. Very easy to use. I really like couscous a lot. But make sure that it has enough seasoning or enough flavor in it. We're going to make a salad for this, which is perfect under grilled fish or with any type of grilled meat dish. And to do that, we'll take an onion that's been sliced, and I use a red onion because it's not being cooked, and so you want something that's a little bit more mild, and a tomato that's been diced, we're going to use about 1/3 of a cup of currants. I actually don't mind currants because they're little tiny things, and the nice little bite of sweetness in the salad is a really nice addition. So we'll put the currants in there. We're also using something else that I usually don't use, and most people that know me well know that I hate, and that's cilantro. But in this case, a little bit of cilantro is okay. I just really don't care for it when it's overused or there's too much. So we'll add a little bit of fresh cilantro that's been chopped, some ginger. Now, if you get confused, because this does have quite a few steps and ingredients, we will show you the ingredients at the end of the segment, so don't get lost and don't panic. And a couple of cloves of garlic. And now we have to make our dressing, which is lime juice and some olive oil. And to do that, I'm going to squeeze my lime just by rolling it real well on the counter, just so that I get as much of the juice out as I possibly can. I even take it and just sort of squeeze it like this. And then cut it in half. So we'll use the juice of 2 limes. And then there's no seeds in this, so you can just squeeze away and break up those little bits of pulp in there so that you get the little bites of lime in your salad. It'll make it really nice. This is a real refreshing salad. It's a nice thing to do when you don't want to heat up your kitchen and you want to make something that's a little bit different than a green salad. So there's one, and we'll pour a little bit of this in. And some olive oil to make the dressing. Now you can make your dressing as tart or as mild as you like, and you can really adjust that by your olive oil. Usually you add about 1 part vinegar or acid to 3 parts olive oil or regular oil, but you can definitely adjust that to your flavor. So then you just give this a toss. What I like to do is to toss this and make this dressing while I'm allowing the couscous to absorb the liquid, so that this has a chance actually to sort of marinate a little bit, and then they're ready about the same amount of time. We need to put a little bit of salt in there. Remember that you're seasoning the couscous also with this. Let me give my hands a wipe here, and we'll do a little bit of black pepper. And you could add some green peppercorns in here. You could make this a little bit spicy. You could use different vegetables. You really can use your imagination with this and whatever actually leftovers are in the refrigerator. Now let's finish breaking this up just a little bit. And then this goes right into it. And then I use my hands. Your hands are your best tool. Get down in there and break up any of those lumps of couscous. What happens is it gets very solid, and then I'll put it in my dish and give it a toss as I actually add it to the dish. This is so great because you can use this the next day. You can warm this up. It's perfect for picnics and dinners on the deck. And let's put this over here, and I'll wash my hands, and I'll show you what the couscous looks like that we've actually let sit for those few minutes with the stock on it, so that you can get an idea of how easy and how quick this is. Now this is the one that we added the stock to, and you can pop it up, and you can see just in those few minutes it's already starting to absorb most of the liquid. And then as it sits, the color will bleed into the couscous to make it more yellow like this one. And it was so simple. That's what I love about couscous. But just make sure and flavor it so that it's not bland. You can also flavor the liquid a little bit more and pour it into it. So I think you need to try this dish the next time you do some grilled fish, or actually for any occasion. For the salad, you'll need 3 cups of chicken or vegetable stock, a pinch of saffron, salt and black pepper to taste, 1½ cups of couscous, 1 medium red onion julienne, 2 cloves of garlic chopped, 1 large tomato that's been seeded and diced, 1 teaspoon chopped fresh ginger, 1/3 of a cup of currants, 1 tablespoon chopped fresh cilantro, the juice of 2 limes, 2/3 of a cup of olive oil, and salt and black pepper to taste. Now remember, when you cook the couscous, it's very important to use some type of stock, whether it's chicken or vegetable. You could even use a canned stock if you absolutely have to, but don't use water. It really will make it way too bland. And then use whatever you have in your refrigerator. Leftovers make the best salad, and you can just combine them with the couscous, make a little dressing, and boom, you have something interesting and not boring.
Caprial's Cafe Favorites is a must for every good cook's library. Over 130 easy and delicious recipes, including most of the dishes Chef Caprial prepares on Caprial's Cafe. At only $21.95 plus shipping and handling, the beautiful hardbound edition with selected full-color photographs makes Cafe Favorites an ideal gift. For bank card orders, call 1-800-917-9100 or send check or money order to Cafe Favorites, 98 Main Street, Tiburon, California, 94920.
No more boring side dishes. We can throw all of those out because now we have 3 new and exciting recipes to try with all kinds of dishes. John, my husband's famous Sesame Noodles. Then we have soft polenta with roasted herbs, which is a little bit different than a regular polenta where people put it in a mold and then slice it and grill it. It actually is a little softer in texture and a little creamier. And then we have our couscous salad, which I think that you should definitely try. So get out there and make your side dishes exciting, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.